The Langford estate shimmered beneath a canopy of golden lights. Everything about the place was designed to impress. The marble driveway, the rose-scented hedges trimmed like royalty, and the guests, draped in designer gowns, cufflinks, and whispered wealth. Inside the ballroom, laughter danced with the clinking of champagne flutes. It was not just a party. It was a performance. A stage set by none other than Preston Langford, the millionaire tech mogul whose face had graced magazine covers, whose ego, some whispered, arrived before he did. He stood in the center of the room like a conductor before an orchestra. Tall, confident, tailored down to the shine on his shoes. People laughed louder when he laughed. They nodded faster when he spoke. And tonight he had something special to show off. Behind him stood the centerpiece of the ballroom. A magnificent Steinway grand piano. A masterpiece of sound, now reduced to silence. "It is a tragedy," he declared, swirling his drink with flair. 12 engineers. 2 world-class tuners. A restoration expert flown in from Vienna. He paused for effect. None of them could bring this old beauty back to life. The guests leaned in. One woman placed her manicured hand on her heart and sighed. Preston smirked. "And so," he continued, "I have decided to make it interesting." He turned to the room with a dramatic smile. "If anyone here tonight can fix this piano, restore her to her former glory, I shall marry them on the spot." Gasp. Then laughter. Rich rolling laughter. A stockbroker with a loud tie shouted, "Even me, Preston?" "I said anyone," Preston replied with a wink. "But I do have standards." The room erupted again. Cameras clicked. Servers moved like shadows. Eyes sparkled with amusement. No one took the challenge seriously. And no one expected the silence to break from the edge of the room. Near the service entrance, barely noticed by anyone, stood a young woman. Plain dress. Hair pinned back. Not a guest, clearly. A staff member, maybe. An assistant. Maybe someone's cousin helping for the night. She had been standing quietly all evening. Watching. Listening. Her hands clasped in front of her. But now she stepped forward. The laughter faltered. Her shoes tapped softly against the marble floor as she approached the grand piano. Some eyebrows rose. Preston raised his glass to his lips, intrigued. The woman stopped a few feet from him. "I heard what you said," she spoke softly, almost afraid her voice might crack. Preston lowered his glass. "I said many things," he smiled. "Which one caught your attention?" She looked at the piano. Then back at him. "You said you would marry anyone who could fix it." More laughter. More stares. "Indeed I did," he nodded, amused. "Are you proposing something, miss?" "Maya," she answered. "Just Maya." She did not offer a last name. And no one in the room recognized her. Some chuckled under their breath. The woman beside Preston leaned in and whispered, "She looks like a cleaner." He shrugged. "Even better. Makes the story juicier if she succeeds." The crowd now formed a loose circle around them. It had become a spectacle. A joke stretching into entertainment. A few guests pulled out their phones. Maya stepped closer to the piano. She touched the lid gently as if asking for permission to open it. Preston watched her with that look. The look men often give when they believe they are in full control. "Then may I try?" she asked. It was not a demand. It was not cocky. It was not dramatic. It was quiet. Too quiet. The room, once filled with smugness, fell into a hush. Preston blinked. Then smiled. "Be my guest," he said, sweeping his hand with mock chivalry. And just like that, Maya leaned over the instrument. The room's spotlight now fixed not on the millionaire, but on the girl no one invited. The girl no one expected. The girl with nothing to prove, and everything to show. "Then may I try?" she asked softly as the laughter died in disbelief. The air shifted. The room fell silent. No clinking glasses. No muttered jokes. No laughter. Just dozens of wealthy eyes locked on Maya. Eyebrows arched. Lips curled into smug half-smiles. Some leaned in, eager to witness a train wreck. Others scoffed softly, whispering behind raised palms. Preston Langford leaned back, expression unreadable. He tapped his glass with one ringed finger. "Go ahead, little lady," he said, his voice dripping with polite mockery. "Entertain us." A ripple of chuckles. But Maya. She said nothing. She stepped toward the piano, calm and weightless, like she had done this 1,000 times before. She reached down, fingers brushing over the panel. The lid creaked gently as she opened it. Dust stirred. The golden hammers and rusted strings glinted under chandelier light. She studied the innards of the instrument not like a stranger, but like someone remembering the face of an old friend. Her hand reached into the body, and with each movement, it became clear. This was not guesswork. It was memory. Muscle memory. Emotional memory. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. The novelty was fading. They had expected a funny moment. Not this stillness. Not this grace. A woman in pearls whispered to her husband, "What is she doing?" "She's wasting time," someone muttered from the far end of the room. Maya ignored it all. Her eyes scanned the keys. Her left thumb grazed a damaged string. She adjusted it with her bare fingers, her nails slightly stained from oil, signs of someone who had worked with her hands. No tools. No drama. Only care. The moment hung like a held breath. And in that moment, Maya drifted back. Flashback: Maya, age 12. The walls of the foster home were cracked, the heaters often cold. But the old man in the basement, Mr. Eli, kept one thing alive. Music. He had been blind since childhood. But he tuned pianos by feel. "Maya," he would say, hands outstretched over an open grand, "each instrument has a soul. And when it is broken, it grieves." Maya sat beside him every afternoon, watching, listening, learning. He taught her how to feel the sound without hearing it, how to listen for silence, how to understand tension in strings the way some people understood hearts. When he died, she was 16. The city took the piano away. No one ever heard her play again. Until now. Back in the ballroom, Maya adjusted the felt hammer with her pinky. Click. Another spring shifted. She closed the top panel gently, eyes still studying every detail like a surgeon. Her movements were neither fast nor flashy. They were precise, deliberate, intimate. But the crowd saw only slowness. They saw a girl. They saw a cleaner. They saw someone who did not belong. "She will break it," someone whispered. "Does she even know what she's touching?" "I bet this is staged." Preston smirked. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on knees, eyes fixed on her like a man waiting for a house of cards to fall. He did not interrupt. He did not stop her. He just watched, expecting her to fail beautifully. But Maya. She kept working. She pressed one, and then Maya placed both hands above the keyboard. Not to play a melody, but to test it. One soft press. A single note. It rang out. Clear. Pure. Haunting. And the room gasped. There was no laughter. No whispers. Just stunned silence. The sound lingered in the air like a ghost returning home. Maya did not smile. She did not look up. She pressed another key. Then another. Each one answered her. The piano, silent for years, was singing again. Preston's expression cracked. The smirk faded. His jaw clenched slightly. And in that moment, for the first time in a long while, he did not know what to say. Because Maya had not come to entertain. She had not come to joke. She had come to restore something broken. And she had just started. And then the room gasped, not from laughter, but from the first perfect chord in years. The first note had broken the silence. But the second carried something else. Emotion. Memory. Power. Maya pressed a sequence of keys, gentle, intentional. The sound that emerged was not loud. It was not flashy. It was true. Rich, deep, warm. The kind of sound that made a person stop breathing, just to hear more. The room stood frozen. The chandelier lights reflected off stunned faces. Phones lowered. Conversations died. This was not a party anymore. It was a revelation. Maya sat before the Steinway like she had always belonged there. Like the bench had waited years for her return. Her fingers moved with a grace that only time and love could teach. She began to play a melody, soft, slow, haunting. It was a lullaby, one no one in the room recognized. But for Maya, every note had weight. Every pause had memory. Because this was the tune her foster father, Mr. Eli, used to hum. Every night, when the power went out in the foster home, he would sit beside the broken upright piano in the basement, fingertips on the keys, humming this tune into the dark. Not for the world. Just for her. Maya never forgot it. And now she gave it back on a grander stage than either of them had ever imagined. The music rippled through the ballroom like a breeze cutting through still heat. It reached into places no conversation had. It melted away the marble, the chandeliers, the diamond cuffs. All that remained was sound. And silence. And her. Preston Langford stood motionless. His charming smile had vanished. The showman had disappeared. All that remained was a man, watching someone who had shattered every assumption he held. His arms were folded across his chest, but his fingers gripped too tightly. His eyes were fixed, unblinking. The woman beside him whispered, "She is incredible." But Preston did not respond. Not yet. The final note faded, hung in the air like a ghost reluctant to leave. No one clapped. Not because they did not want to, but because no one knew if it was the right thing to do. It felt sacred. Too sacred for applause. And then, a voice from the back of the room. "Who are you?" It was a question, but it echoed like a confession. As if the entire room had finally realized they had misjudged her. Maya turned slowly, still seated on the bench. She looked not at the crowd, but straight ahead, soft, steady. "I used to repair these," she said quietly. "For music conservatories." A ripple of shock passed through the guests. She stood. Her voice steady. Her presence, suddenly larger than the grand piano behind her. "But after my father died, I had no one. No money. No connections. So I took jobs where I could find them. Cleaning. Serving. Just enough to survive." She paused. "I stopped touching pianos for years. Because I thought maybe no one would listen to me anymore. Now they were all listening. Even the servers had stopped moving. Even the band in the corner had gone silent. Even Preston." Someone whispered, "Did she say conservatories?" Another guest murmured, "She plays like a Juilliard grad." Maya looked down for a moment. Then said, "I was accepted into Juilliard. Full scholarship." She touched the piano's edge. "I dropped out when I lost my father. I had no one left to believe in me." The shame in the room was thick. It clung to tuxedos. It settled behind pearl necklaces. It crept into the backs of throats that had laughed too soon. All the eyes that once dismissed her now dropped. Even Preston lowered his gaze. Just for a second. Then he stepped forward. He walked to the piano slowly, no bravado, no charm. Just silence. Maya stood her ground. He looked at her, truly looked at her. For the first time that night he saw not a joke. Not a challenge. Not a cleaner. But someone who had walked through fire. And emerged quietly but brilliantly whole. He cleared his throat. His voice was quieter than before. "I joked about marrying a genius," he said. His eyes searched hers. "But I never imagined one would actually show up." There was no laughter. Not this time. Only awe. And silence. And the deep, undeniable truth that filled the room. She had just changed everything. She had not shouted. She had not demanded. She had simply played. And in doing so, she had broken the one thing no one in that room had dared to touch. Their pride. "I joked about marrying a genius," he murmured. "But I never imagined one would actually show up." The ballroom still buzzed with stunned silence. But inside Preston Langford, the noise was deafening. The ego that once led every conversation, the confidence that once filled every room, now sat beside something unfamiliar, a flicker of shame. He stood face to face with a woman he had underestimated, mocked, used as the punchline to a drunken joke. And she had dismantled him with music. No lectures. No shouting. No vengeance. Just a melody. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Extended it toward her with the stiffness of someone trying, and failing, to feel in control. "Maya, if you ever want to work with me, I can offer you a position. Restoration, brand consultant, whatever you want." He hesitated. Then added softly, "Or if you need financial support, scholarship, housing, anything. It is yours." She looked at the card, but did not take it. Instead, her eyes met his with quiet clarity. No anger. No revenge. Only truth. "I do not need anything from you," she said gently. "But I do have one question." Preston blinked. She stepped closer, still calm, still collected. Her voice remained soft. But somehow it cut deeper than a scream ever could. "Will you keep joking at people's expense?" That question, simple, honest, landed like a thunderclap. It echoed louder than the piano had. It swept across the room and fell heavy on every guest who had laughed. Every man who had judged her clothes. Every woman who had turned away at her presence. Preston opened his mouth. But no words came. He looked around at his crowd, his stage, his audience, and realized how small it all was now. The applause he used to crave, suddenly meaningless. The room that once bowed to his charm no longer moved. He closed his mouth and nodded. That nod was not public. It was not grand. It was not for anyone but her. And that was enough. Later that week the story broke. Someone had filmed the performance, posted it online. Within 24 hours it went viral. Millionaire's piano fixed by anonymous girl in apron. Cleaner silences tech giant with one chord. Who is Maya? The woman who played the impossible note. Millions watched. Thousands commented. Theories spread. Her face, once ignored, became iconic. But Maya did not speak to the press. She turned down interviews. She refused sponsorships. She did not chase fame. She chose peace. And that made her even more legendary. A week later, an anonymous letter arrived at her apartment. Inside, an acceptance letter to an elite piano restoration fellowship in Vienna. A fully funded program covering travel, housing, mentorship under some of Europe's finest luthiers. The note attached was unsigned. Only a quote. One she recognized from Mr. Eli's basement wall. Not all noise is music. But all music begins in silence. Meanwhile, Preston Langford disappeared from public view. No more panels. No more parties. No more press. For weeks, speculation brewed. Until he surfaced at a small community college in Atlanta. He stood at the podium, unshaven, noticeably quieter. I have spent years building products, he said. Now I want to build people. He announced a new foundation. One dedicated to providing scholarships, mentorships, and training for underrepresented talents in music and engineering. He called it Project Silence. The logo? A single grand piano key. He never mentioned Maya by name. But everyone knew. The media could not stop spinning it. Headlines read like poetry. The fixer of silence. From janitor to genius. The woman who played truth. The note that broke the billionaire. But Maya remained unseen. She had started her fellowship quietly. Wrote letters to the next girl in line. Volunteered in schools. Worked with damaged instruments in orphanages across Eastern Europe. She believed beauty belonged everywhere. Especially where the world forgot to look. Back at the Langford estate, the Steinway remained in its place. Perfectly tuned. Unplayed. It became a monument. Not to wealth. Not to genius. But to humility. Guests who visited now heard the story whispered in reverence. That once in this very room, a woman walked out of the shadows. And silenced an empire with grace. Some say Preston still keeps the card he tried to offer her. Still unread. Still untouched. A reminder of who he was. And who he almost remained. But the lesson stayed. Because some changes shout. Others whisper. And the deepest ones play their own music. The man with the most noise was silenced by the quiet strength of someone he never saw coming. Months had passed. The buzz had faded. The headlines disappeared. The hashtags cooled. But Maya. She never needed the noise. Not then. Not now. Tonight, she stood once again before a piano. This time on stage at the Roosevelt Hall. A venue known more for celebrity fundraisers than musical purity. The hall was packed. But not by paparazzi or critics. Not by socialites seeking wine and attention. It was a charity event. Proceeds to fund music programs and foster homes across the country. Maya had not requested the venue. She had not chosen the spotlight. They had invited her. And she had agreed for the cause. On stage stood the same Steinway. The same piano once declared unfixable. The same one that had been silenced by time. And resurrected by her hands. But tonight it was not just tuned. It was transformed. The outer wood had been lovingly revarnished. The keys replaced. The hammers perfectly rebalanced. It looked pristine. But it was not new. It was whole. Just like her. She walked slowly across the stage. No introduction. No fanfare. She sat, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play. The same melody from that night. The one Mr. Eli used to hum in the dark. But this time, she played it fuller, richer, wider. Because this time she was not surviving. She was speaking. And this time, everyone listened. Back row. Corner seat. No fanfare. Preston Langford sat alone. No entourage. No photographers. Just a folded program in his lap and a look in his eyes that had not been there before. A softness. A stillness. And the humility of a man still learning how to listen. He did not approach her after the performance. Not immediately. He waited. Let the others congratulate her. Let the organizers shake her hand. He stood by the stage steps until she noticed him. She walked over, calm, just as she had been on that unforgettable night. No awkwardness. No hesitation. Just peace. I never meant it seriously, he said. About the marriage. He said it softly, almost sheepishly. Like a child admitting he had spoken out of turn. Maya smiled. Not mockingly. Not coldly. But warmly. Neither did I take it seriously, she replied. Her voice still calm. Still unwavering. But I fixed what mattered. That stopped him. He blinked once. Then nodded. You fixed more than the piano, he said. And that was all. There was no proposal, no declaration, no sudden romance. Just a pause between two people. One who had been broken by arrogance, and one who had healed through quiet strength. She turned to leave. But just before she stepped down the stairs, she looked back. "There is music in people too," she said. "But some only learn how to hear it after they have been silent long enough." He nodded again. This time slower. Sincerely. The next day, a photo of the benefit concert made the rounds on social media. But no drama followed. No scandal. Only a caption. "The piano speaks again. So does she." Weeks later, Maya received a package at her apartment. Inside was a notebook. Leather-bound. Old but carefully preserved. On the front cover, "Property of Mr. Eli." Inside, handwritten notes, tuning guides, sketches of sound patterns, and a single letter. "I bought it from an estate sale in Georgia. I believe it belonged to someone who once taught a girl how to make broken things sing again. May it return home. P.L." Maya never replied. She did not need to. Some words do not require return postage. Instead, she placed the notebook on her work desk. Right beside the tuning fork she now carried to every conservatory she visited. Her days were full. Restoration projects. Student workshops. Quiet evenings with books and soft music. But every now and then she would sit at her own piano. Not to fix. Not to impress. Not to escape. Just to play. She did not chase applause. She did not chase revenge. Because her victory had already happened. Not in the moment she fixed the piano, but in the moment she chose to carry on. Without bitterness. True genius does not shout. It does not demand to be seen. It does not wear ego like a crown. True genius waits, listens, feels, and plays the right note. Even when no one is listening. Especially then. She never fixed the piano to win love. She fixed it because it once taught her how to survive. And how to be heard again.